Hi, I'm Bailey Bennett Andrade, DEI Media Marketer. In the following presentation, you will hear from Delia Estrada as she goes over 2 out of the 4 barriers to cultural proficiency: overcoming resistance to change and developing awareness of need to adapt to diversity. Make sure to check out the other video on barriers to learn about the other 2 as well.
Hi, I'm Delia Estrada, PhD. Currently, I'm an administrative coordinator with LA Unified in Human Resources Induction and Credentialing. I'm also an adjunct professor at California State University, San Marcos. I've been a principal, assistant principal, coordinator, history teacher, and an educator for over 30 years. During this section, we'll be covering 2 more aspects regarding the barriers to cultural proficiency. They are overcoming resistance to change and the unawareness of the need to adapt. So let's begin with this consideration. Everyone who enters the teaching profession declares ideals which aim at providing rich education to all students. You will see it readily declared in job applications, resumes, and letters of introduction. Schools declare the same ideals in their vision and mission statement. All children will learn, ensuring access and equity for all, a rich environment where all students can learn. We are a diverse learning community of high expectations and achievement. We see and read these declarations in our schools all the time. So there is much evidence that these ideals exist. What may not be immediately evident are the barriers that exist. But there is no doubt they are there and they are formidable. No one may publish a statement which states, "We don't really believe these kids can learn," or "I really don't want to work with those kids." They simply enact them in their everyday actions, which display their beliefs. The barriers become evident in their behaviors, their policies, the practices, and the decisions they make on a daily basis. So let's take the first one, overcoming resistance to change. What does this look like? What does it sound like? I've been teaching for 20 years. I don't see the need to change anything. I'm 2 years away from retirement. I don't really have time for this. If we just attracted the right kind of student, our scores would be fine and we wouldn't have any problems. And realize these are people who are willing to tell you what they're thinking. What about the other ones that are silent, saying nothing, but continue to do what they do? What is being expressed is a desire or a discomfort of having to change, even blaming the group they're intended to serve to avoid having to change. Realize it's also a commitment to a worldview that has been strongly established. The urgency of adapting causes discomfort, and the initial reaction is to resist. This tension needs to be acknowledged. At the same time, there needs to be ongoing reflection and dialogue between declared values and our current behavior and practices. The avoidance must be acknowledged. And realize that avoidance is not an unsuccessful tactic. Many educators have seen reform movements and ideas come and go. The assumption that it's just another flavor of the month and it will pass. But we have to return to that essential question. Who are we as educators? And are we who we say we are? The second barrier is they may not even be aware of the need to adapt. What does that sound like? What does that look like? Remember, the world has always been this way. Why should it change? So this is what it sounds like. We don't need to do anything for these people. Why do we have to change? It was good enough for me. It should be good enough for them. Wait a minute. This is America. They should adapt to us. Isn't this reverse discrimination? Why are we trying to fix something that's not broken? Isn't this the way the world is for everyone? If it was good enough for me, why isn't it good enough for you? Why do you deserve special treatment? It appears naive, but the fact remains people may not be able to see why these behaviors and practices are so destructive. They're not aware their behaviors do not align with their declared values and ideals. This is the great power of systematic oppression. It relies on behaviors and practices remaining unexamined, unacknowledged, unquestioned, and keeping them unconscious. This is where implicit bias lies. I might not even be aware of how I make these decisions. I'm not aware of how these beliefs and assumptions are affecting my decision making. I am unaware. But realize these hidden beliefs have real consequences which affect people's lives. As Dr. John Amichiobi observes, the origin may be unconscious, but the effects are overt, real, and explicit. And remember, people love change as long as they're not the one having to do the changing. So, for instance, if these parents just valued education more, if they took their schoolwork seriously, okay, what's really being said is this: if they just do it the way I tell them to do it, everything would be fine. It's a pushing away of responsibility because it creates discomfort. Think of some of these quotes I shared with you when you do the work with the cultural proficiency continuum. People have a hard time when they are the ones required to do the changing. The good news is that it can be done. To overcome resistance to change and to develop the awareness of the need to adapt is going to take work. It's not one glorious moment of, aha, yes, I got it. It takes intentional processing over time. What you're doing is you're challenging a worldview built on deficit thinking. It is about taking responsibility about what can be done and acknowledging my actions, my daily actions, can create equity, access, and opportunity, or they can restrict, limit, and even damage the lives of children. So, what can we do? To overcome resistance to change and develop the awareness of the need to adapt, this is what we need to do. Have a big picture before you begin the process. Realize what you're getting into and that it will take time. Remember, reflection and dialogue is the engine of all our work, so it must be used at all times. Learn to acknowledge assets and solicit it from others. Question deficit thinking whenever you come across it. And remember, every interaction is precious, from formal professional developing settings to hallway conversations to a quick conversation in the parking lot. It occurs in everyday interactions. There are no dress rehearsals. Every interaction counts. Change comes from relationships, not mandates. So you have to build them one at a time. But be fearless. Examine, assert, and reassert the values declared over and over again. Use it as the base for those conversations. And be patient. Take one process at a time, but go methodically, but with all deliberate speed, to quote Brown versus Board of Education. Be aware of delaying tactics. Keep the focus on the work. Give people the opportunity and time to process. This is hard work. Begin with the coalition of the willing. Do not let naysayers eat your time and energy. Nonconformity, although beautiful, is disruptive, and this is very messy work. Good work is very messy, but great learning, progress, and innovation comes from great messes. And if you don't believe me, watch 2 to 5-year-olds. This is the richest stage of a human's life of learning. And as you watch them play, look at the incredible messes they make. What's also going on is spectacular learning. So go ahead, make an awesome mess and jump into it with gusto. Remember too, perfection is the enemy of the good. Work diligently, expect challenges and hurdles. Okay. And remember, leading does not mean you're doing it for them. It means creating the conditions for them to do their best thinking and do their best work. Success will follow. Always remember the handoff principle. And I can't stress this enough. Please take care of yourself. Be good to yourself. You're no good to anyone unless you take care of yourself. And here's the good news. People can change. You can change your worldview. It will be an impetus which will bring rich conversation and understanding. And once it is in motion, it is rolling. It's also the key to happiness. As Sean Acker states in the Happiness Principle, happiness is not about not having to change. It's about knowing or learning that you can. I hope this has provided you some insight into the barriers to culture proficiency, overcoming resistance to change, and unawareness of the need to adapt.